Hi, good afternoon, and welcome to our third installation of Pratt Chats. For those who don't know me, my name is Sharon Farrell, and I'm the president of the Public Relations Association of Trinidad and Tobago. Tonight, I'm very excited. I'm extremely excited as we take a look at the topic communications, and more so looking at communication strategies, trying to understand when our messages are just hitting that point. As the executive, we have sat down and we looked at exactly what is happening now. We have been in a pandemic for over a year, actually a year plus. And there's been a lot of toys, a lot of talk, a lot of noise in terms of whether these strategies are working, whether or not we are hitting our targets, whether or not people are responding to some of the messages that are going out there. So the executive sat down and decided, listen, I think we had a role to play, and let's bring the players to the table and let's discuss this. So hence this Pratt Chat was born. So tonight, I'm really excited and I'm really looking forward to a really powerful and power-packed discussion on communication strategies, communication in a crisis, and how we can work together to bring across a unilateral message. I also want to take this time to kind of highlight some lovely young ladies, professional women in the field who have worked really tirelessly as communicators and as members of the Pratt Executive. So let me highlight my team, and I'm going to start with Racy Russo. Racy is our Director of Professional Development and the lady behind Pratt Chats. Racy has really worked hard in terms of getting this up together. So thank you, Racy. Welcome. Also working with us behind the scenes is our Director of Events, Chanel Glasgow. It says she's our powerhouse. She's the person that runs our lives. So welcome, Chanel, and thank you so much for being a part of the Pratt Executive. We have, and we couldn't do a lot of this without our digital communicator, Mr. LaShawn Ramdin. LaShawn really helps us, comes up there, sticks with us, and really kind of gets us through our Pratt Chats. So LaShawn, come on, take a bow. Welcome, LaShawn. Moving on, we do have our secretary, and our secretary is the backbone of the association. As with many persons will understand, a secretary really sort of keeps the association moving and gel together. So let me introduce you to our secretary, Ms. Rodelle Phillips-Simmons. Hi, Rodelle, and welcome. Thank you so much. So I'm going to go now. I'm missing two members of the association who are unfortunately unable to be here tonight. Bibi Khan, who is our Director of Membership, and many of our members would have interacted with Bibi. And Desiree Connor, our Treasurer. Both unfortunately cannot be here with us tonight. And I know that they are listening on. So thank you, ladies, for being a part of this. And thank you so much for your support. I want to hand over to our Vice President and our moderator for tonight, Joanne Briggs. Joanne has done an excellent job on the last two Pratt Chats, and this is her being her third as a moderator. I think she has a really excellent knack for it. She's out there and she's gung-ho to go. So I'm going to pass the session now to Joanne. And so Joanne, you take it away, and let's bring this Pratt Chat home. Thank you, Joanne.
Thank you. Thank you, Sharon. Good evening, everyone. For those who just came in, my name is Joanne Briggs. I am the Vice President of the Public Relations Association of Trinidad and Tobago. And tonight's theme, we are talking about we're in this together. Communication support during a pandemic. Now, that first part, we're in this together, sounds so familiar because that has been the tagline for the Ministry of Health. But at the same time, it also is a universal statement for all of us to contribute in order to make sure that we are all on the same page as we try to understand what is happening with this pandemic that we're facing. The reality is our communicators have been in crisis mode for the past 15 months. And 15 months is a long time to be managing a crisis like this. So we are so happy to have with us this afternoon the Honourable Minister for Communications in the Office of the Prime Minister, Minister Symon de Nobriga. Mr. Nobriga was elected as the Member of Parliament for Diego Martin Central on August 10th, 2020. So this is his maiden voyage. Following this, he was appointed the Minister in the Ministry of the Prime Minister with responsibility for communications. Mr. de Nobriga is the holder of a diploma in marketing and public relations from the London Chamber of Commerce and Industry and a certificate in marketing from the Chartered Institute of Marketing. He was able to successfully navigate a career in business management across various industries. Thank you for being with us, sir.
Thank you very much, Joan.
Hey, you're welcome. Our second guest is Daniel Buko Henrique. Daniel, I hope I did the correct thing, you know, with the cultural emphasis. Daniel is a freelance multidisciplinary strategy and operations consultant with more than 15 years experience in varying industries, particularly financing services and entertainment. She is passionate about all things Trinidad and Tobago Carnival and has been with the Tribe group of companies since inception, that is 2004, in varying capacities. Now you're trying to wonder why it is I'm bringing Carnival into the pandemic. I know that that people who know me know I play mass, that I know mass, I'm in mass, I study mass. But in this context, Daniel has been able, I don't know if you all have been able to see it, but the Take the Shot campaign that you've been seeing hosted by Tribe, she's one of the people behind it, the drivers behind it. So we brought her here to talk about her experience in developing and launching this project and getting some feedback as to how that has been how successful has it been and some of the lessons she has learned. Next on our panel, we have Adrian Raymond. Adrian has over 2 decades of experience in marketing and corporate communications. He has received formal training and real-life experience in conducting behavior change communication campaigns to at-risk and hard-to-reach populations. His understanding of language coding, both verbal and non-verbal, peer communications, and alternative narrative tools, together with a 360 communications approach, has been seen several of his interventions achieve their desired goals. And last but not least, Colin Graves. Colin is no stranger to PracChat. He was here in our earlier editions. And this time, as head of public relations of the Digital Group, he is coming to share with us some of the strategies he has been able to use in order during the pandemic, particularly when coming to the messaging of taking care of yourself, making sure you're safe, make sure that everybody around you is safe. For those who don't remember, he is a communications professional with a wealth of experience in events management, communications, and marketing. Colin loves to tell compelling stories, whether through events, music, prose, art, or video production. But this time he is here wearing his corporate hat. And these are the panelists we have for this evening. So as I start off, I am going straight to the minister. Minister, we were talking earlier, I think when we were doing our rehearsals, as to, you know, this was your baptism of fire, so to speak, because soon after you came in, the pandemic hit. And that for you, in that position as the responsible for communications, how did you feel, or how I mean it's dynamic, it continues to go, communications doesn't stay still, but what are some of the lessons did you learn within the past 15 months?
Okay, well, thanks Joanne. First of all, let me say good night to Sharon, the rest of your panel, rest of your executive, and of course everyone who's listening. Are you all hearing me clearly? Great. John, is a very good question. You are correct. It was a baptism by fire. I would have come through a role of leading the Diego Martin Regional Corporation, and of course I would have been in that role at the beginning of the pandemic. But as a chairman of the corporation, at that time, it was really about ensuring that services were delivered, that the corporation, as I said, as a deliverer of services, did everything that it could. Post August 10th and post my taking over the role ostensibly as the Minister of Communications, just so to make it a lot easier for when you're referencing me. it has been a challenge. Of course, you have to navigate the fluid situation that we have been in, and I think fluid is an understatement. But to navigate the fluid situation that we've been in, understanding the role of OPM comms as a support vehicle for the messaging and the activities that are driven by the Ministry of Health. But if I were to say what the biggest lesson learned in the last 15 months, and particularly I would say in the last 2 months, is just simply the importance of content. What you are saying, how you're saying it, where you're saying it, and we are learning more and more who is saying it. So I think that more than anything has been biggest lesson learned, particularly in recent times. I have been blown away by the response, obviously, of corporate Trinidad, but it is also I've also had to navigate the choppy waters as we move from phase to phase through this process through these last 15 months. So the messaging has had to change, where we are speaking has had to change, how we are speaking has had to change, and just figuring those things out. And of course, well, lending our support to the Ministry of Health with that sort of information and helping to drive that messaging. That has been probably the biggest challenge and also the biggest lesson learned.
Okay, great. Because I mean, that is one of the things we were talking about, logistics, because I mean, that is very important, particularly when you're doing a communication strategy. So is it then that in the case of the Ministry of Communications, is there an overarching communication strategy that you share with the other ministries, or is it that you are working alongside them in order to get the messages across?
So the Ministry of Communications does have an overarching function, and that function really should be to drive policy, to act as a director of keeping message. So every ministry has its own authentic self, has its own identity, and with that identity will come its own voice. However, all those voices need to remain on message. In terms of my role as Minister of Communications, one of the big ticket items for me in this role, separate and apart from obviously the communications effort in and around the pandemic, has been to strengthen the resources of the ministry. There was a need to get a brand new director of government communications in and to flesh out that department. That process has been completed and was completed within the last month. And out of that, the policy that will help to drive government communications will now be disseminated. It will be disseminated to the various ministries. However, we are lucky in that we do have quite a few returning ministers. We do have a lot of ministries that do have communications teams that are in place, and the ministry has sort of maintained dotted lines to all the comms teams to help to facilitate any comms assistance that they will need to ensure that the channels of communication are open. And very often, well, at least it's been my approach to understand that communications is clearly a two-way street. So at OPM Comms, we're not about tell and sell. What we are trying to get is the experience of every ministry to assist us to tell the overarching story of the work of government, and I see that as our role at GovComms.
Okay, thank you so much, Minister. So we're going to stick a pin there, and then we're going to I'm going to toss to Daniel Buko Arik, Hi, Daniel. Good evening and welcome. I just wanted to tell us a little bit about the project that you were doing with Try Take the Shot and how that has been, how have you been able to use that as an example of what we will call peer communications, because you're talking to the people within your age group about vaccination and COVID-19. Could you tell us a little bit more about that?
Sure, no problem. So thanks very much for having me here tonight. Excited to have this platform to speak about our program. So of course, we know with COVID-19 last year, the entertainment sector would have just come to a complete halt. We haven't been able to operate, and it has really just been an enlightening moment for all of us, because you have gone from being extremely active, a lot happening, to a complete stop. And especially us and my team, we have been going at a rate for the last few years. We've been in a place of extreme growth. So it has been a shock to the system almost for us. Coming out of this, one of the things you would find our team as a whole, led by our executive with Dean Akin, Dwayne and Jared and everyone, is that we are very passionate about coming out on the other side of this pandemic and doing everything that is necessary and safe to do that. From last year, we have been part of many campaigns through the Promoters Association and with other corporate campaigns where they may ask us to speak, where we constantly were talking about protocols, make sure you wear your mask, make sure you're responsible. We have been sure, we have not encouraged people to do any events, to have anything that may breach protocols or anything that's even borderline, really erring on the side of caution as we move to get out of this pandemic. Now, part of this that we feel is major to coming out on the other side of this is getting everybody vaccinated. That is the key to really coming out of this pandemic right now. And what we noticed is that when the first rounds of vaccination started and a few members of the team were fortunate enough to be eligible to get their vaccines, we realized that we got lots of questions. If you posted to social media, people were reaching out to us. How was your experience? How do you feel? Why did you decide to get the vaccine? Did you feel safe? Did you have concerns? And we were constantly asking questions to the point where one of our team members, Aaron Fingal, who hosts a lot of our social media, etc., and he's very active in our team, he actually posted about his experience, exactly what happened after the 48 hours after he got the vaccine and everything. And the response was tremendous from people that he knew, from people in our community, from our committee members. And our committee is far reaching. I mean, we have over 300 people in our direct network that we connect with. And we have people that are not just in Trinidad, but people that are overseas. And we have several doctors on our committee as well. And these people have been continuously educating in our groups. They have been speaking about their experiences overseas. As you know, they're coming out of the pandemic a bit earlier than us because they went into it earlier. And that has really driven us to feel that, we have this platform and it's really, almost like an obligation for us to speak and to talk about what has been happening here. One of the common threads that we found when speaking about the pandemic is that we had a mix of people who had their own hesitancies about getting the vaccine and about COVID-19 in general, a lot of mystery around it. And then we had people who were frustrated in trying to educate friends or elderly parents, etc., who also had vaccine fear. So our campaign is directed at providing information, that is our aim, to answer all those questions that people may have and to educate you as a person so that I can then help spread the word. So I have been vaccinated, but I am happy to encourage other people, and the more knowledge I have, the more of a case I can build surrounding that. So that was really the genesis of the campaign. Based on that, and of course, being in entertainment and knowing that we have a young audience, we really aim to approach the campaign in a way that would reach our audience, casual language, something that really broke down the terms, nothing too intimidating, so that any man on the street could hear this information and say, okay, I could understand that. So we would have had first Dr. Asha Williams, who became popular through some of her videos went viral. She's also viral on TikTok, who spoke about should I get vaccinated and answering many questions that we would have had about the vaccines at that time. Then we had Dr. Sanjana Mathur, who I'm sure many of you are familiar with the presentation she did, particularly one she did on the Sinopharm vaccine, which is very relevant to us as that is the vaccine that's available here. So she did some Mythbusters answering questions about that vaccine and general questions, and we did a Twitter live on that. Then we did one with I Got COVID and What I Wish I Knew, who featured Holly Black and Lindell Nelson, who were both ill with COVID. Lindell severely so. He was in Cuba and he was emotional on the live, and you really got that understanding and that feeling of what these people have been through, what they face, and how it touches so many people around them, and what a nerve-wracking time, as well as the speed at which it escalates. So, we may know people who, there's been so much talk about it and it just happens so quickly. And we really wanted people to know that it's so key to continue to stay safe and wear your mask and to social distance until you get vaccinated, so that you just don't even subject yourself to this. Then we went to Pivot or Else, which would have featured people in the local entertainment industry. We had Quasey Hopkinson, Hoppy, Natalie Fonrose, who's one of our designers in our group, Chris Karam, who does decor and events, and Marcus from the artist team. And they all spoke about, for us in the entertainment industry, it's been difficult mentally. It is very hard to watch all the work you've done and everything you do just grind to a halt. And they spoke about their experiences in trying to shift what they went through, and just the transition as we go through this period, and what are we looking to as we come out on the other side of this pandemic. Quasey in particular was very passionate because he's currently in Florida and Florida is open. And he said, it's such a shock to the system to come from Trinidad, where we are now inside and we are fighting this to somewhere that's able to open up. And it really gave him a lot of hope for the future at the time that he was feeling down, that we're looking towards things are going to return to normal and we have brighter days ahead. Because as you know, it's been 15 months and sometimes it feels a little long and it's a little hard for us to see that rainbow at the end.
Mm-hmm.
And then our most popular episode, which is the last one that we did, was True or False. We did Vaccine Mythbusters with Dr. Ramon Ascot and Dr. Chelsea Garcia, who both had really great references. Dr. Ascot really, he compared getting the vaccine to an army. He did a really nice reference. It just really was easy to relate. And it's one of the videos that we've gotten the most traction on with people in terms of their understanding and everything. And then tonight we have another live on Instagram where we're talking about the entertainment perspective with Soca Stars, and we have Charles Marshall, Second Star, and DJ Anna speaking tonight. So our aim is really to reach as many people as we can. We are fortunate to have so many people with large followings on our platform joining us in this. And it's been amazing, the willingness. These doctors may be overseas, but most of them have Caribbean roots. And they're very willing to, partake and share the information, answer questions. And the response has been overwhelming. And we continue to push that. We are also lucky to have our young doctors on our committees. Many of them work actually in the different RHAs, and they have been very active in this campaign. They have driven the questions. They have offered to co-host all of our episodes. So we ourselves are very heartened by the drive and the push that we have and the support that we have from our wider team to really get the word out there. And of course, this is just the beginning, and we plan to continue this campaign as we go along, and especially as more vaccines become available in Trinidad.
That is great. That is great. And what I am intrigued by most of all is the fact that it's basically, how do you say, big to big? I kind of old, sorry. I forget the terminology, but it's within your age group that you're talking about. Young people who are interested and have concerns that they have found a space where they can actually have discussions about actually experiencing COVID or the vaccines, and that is wonderful to know. Thank you, Daniel. We are going to go across the Adrian now. Adrian Raymond, please tell us about some of the things that you've been working on with regards to COVID-19 and communications within your capacity.
All right, evening everyone. So first of all, I want to thank Pratt for having me back again for a second time. I think generally the Pratt interventions are always very timely and extremely constructive. So I first of all want to say to all the communications professionals out there, we know ourselves. We tend to be perfectionists. We tend to be very, very hard on ourselves. We tend to be very anal and very detailed. And we also as well beat ourselves up when we don't do things as well as we think we should be able to do them. And what I want to say to you is, this is brand new territory. This is the first time, not just Trinidad and Tobago, but the world is dealing with a pandemic of this type, at least in our lifetime. And we're dealing with it against a backdrop of a lot of access to many different forums, some of which are not necessarily very constructive, but actually very harmful. So that as you go along, even if things are not necessarily giving you the response that you want, or you feel that you're failing, remember, you just have to keep trucking along because this is brand new to all of us. That said, what I want to talk to everyone about a little bit is that I want to echo what Daniel has been saying. To me, every jab, every shot that is given, and every shot that goes into the arm gets us closer to where we want to be. And where we want to be looking forward is where we were looking back. We want back our life. We want back Trinidad and Tobago, whatever that reasoning is, whether it is that you're religious and you want to be able to go back to church, whether it is you're into carnival like Joanne, Daniel, and me, and you want to jump up and play mass, whether it is you just want to hug up a loved one, whether it is that we're missing Father's Day this weekend because we have to stay away from our parents, from our grandparents, etc. So that it's important that we are able to create a certain level of confidence in vaccinations. And that's a backdrop of a culture where we do not believe necessarily in preventative medicine or preventative health. You're dealing with a backdrop of a situation where people have never seen this before. Yes, we're all familiar with vaccines because you have to take it when you go to school, etc. But this is the first time as a big person you're telling me that I have to go somewhere else and get it and it needs to happen, etc. And there's a lot of hesitancy. So what we have found generally in terms of the studies that we've done at my organization, because we did a vaccine rollout, because we were fortunate to be prioritized by the government, because we have a lot of our workers who are security officers and we have a lot of our staff who are also maintenance staff who work alongside a lot of the essential frontliners. And in order to do that, we needed to kind of create a certain level of confidence. What we found worked the best was peer communications. When it is that your colleagues, your co-workers and stuff like that basically endorsed it and told you, yeah, it's fine. And I'm going to give you a little bit of I'm going to give you all 3 words that we found worked really well for us. Story, because, and yo. Story, because, and yo. Now, we all familiar with story. A lot of people say we all have had to write a speech at some point in time. And a lot of people think it's lazy speech writing to say, let me tell you a story. But it isn't, because what it does is it immediately, you notice the audience immediately picks up, they lean forward because they want to hear the story. Because for a part, well, we're curious or fast, so we're cautious, which is a normal Trini thing. But also as well, it gives us an opportunity to have something that relates. We can find it relevant. We can relate to it. So the moment that you put out, whether it is a cute little graphic that is speaking to a coworker who has had their vaccine and it's my vaccine story, the story of my vaccine, and the story is bolded, immediately somebody's going to pay attention. Or it's a cute little video that you've done. This is my vaccination story. People immediately vaccine because is their reasoning behind it. And you want to get the reasoning behind it because that's what's going to make people relate. I took the vaccine because it is because I want to be able to play mass again. I took the vaccine because I want to go back to church. I took the vaccine because, and there'll be something that people are going to relate to. So the because is extremely important because it ties in to what is going to be a motivating factor for people to consider taking the vaccine. The final thing is yo. What people need to understand is that this is their vaccine. This belongs to them. Their countries, I know all of us sitting down there in the States and looking at all these people that don't want to take the vaccine and all these vaccines that are being either expiring or just simply being given away. If it is you don't want to take your vaccine, somebody else is going to get it. So the your is something that makes them feel a sense of ownership. This is mine. This belongs to me. Okay? Now, as you go along, apart from the co-workers and the etc., if within your corporate environment, you have a leader that is popular, in some cases, it might be your CEO, your managing director, your chairman, in some cases not. In some cases, it might be the marketing manager, it might be yourself, the corporate communications person, or it might just simply be somebody who is a leader or some sort of spun hero that everybody's proud of at the company. So for example, at my company, we have Stacey Ann King, who is a former World Cup winning cricketer. And she basically, when she told her story, she said, listen, I want to protect my older parents. I get opportunities to travel abroad, and that is going to become an issue later on in terms of being vaccinated. And more importantly, I want to be safe. The fact that she took it motivated a lot of people because she does a lot of the training of the recruits. So we found a lot of the younger security officers that had worked under her all of a sudden decided, yes, they were going to come because they know Miss Stacy and she took it. Another thing that we found is that there was, when we began to announce the fact that there was a company rollout, the first thing you got was in terms of comments, was the normal sarcasm. I will take it when CEO name, head of security name took it, take it. So the fact that our CEO had taken it previously and was able to say that, and the fact that on the first day of the rollout, the head of various departments were able to go and do it also gave them a certain level of confidence because they're watching it kind of side-eye, you know. So I think that that is something that is extremely important as well. The other thing that you have to realize and deal with is that you have to put aside your own particular biases. That's something that we had to do because we can be very dismissive. And sometimes people can be afraid of a vaccine for stuff that you might consider to be very ridiculous. So I have known some of our strongest 6-foot-something, work out in the gym, most intimidating security officers, most intimidating maintenance people, most intimidating grounds people and stuff like that. Gentlemen that I am very intimidated by when they come into head office or they walk into my office, I am like nervous. And they will come to me and say like, because I'm short, so they call me little boss man. They'd be like, little boss man, is a needle afraid, you know? I mean, and that is a real fear. That is a real trauma for some people. They're scared of needles. So you have to be able to communicate in a way that says, listen to me, having gone through it, you're not even feeling it. And the nurses have the gentlest of hands. You're really not going to feel it. The other thing that people also are fearful of is possible side effects because they're hearing how people are getting sick, they're hearing. I remember I was discussing this with someone. I'm saying, I wonder if the popularity of one particular brand is because you're not hearing as many stories of the fact that there've been side effects, because you heard with others that, you know, the side effects are really bad and there are people who are just afraid to get sick, and you have to find a way of working around that in terms of explaining to them that, yes, you know, it's something that you have to go through, but it means that your body is learning to fight the infection. So it's almost like a rehearsal or a practice for your body. And so that's part of it. But at the end of the day, it is going to protect you from something that is far, 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 far worse. The other thing as well, in terms of being able to tell your experiences and stuff like that as well, is what is the experience like going to get the vaccine? Now, everyone's experience is going to be different. But there's some people, if they see a long line, they're going to get, that's going to be a turn-off. If they see that you have to jump through hoops and this not working and that not working. So at the end of the day, if you can help as an organization to get them registered, to put them through some sort of mass situation, working with the Ministry of Health, working with the regional corporation, making those particular calls to kind of help co-workers. And of course, again, if it's a bunch of them going, you're more likely to have acceptance because everybody in the department going, everybody in the crew going, those things help. I think as well that if you also, those of you who have gone through the vaccination process and say, you know, it's about an hour, but it doesn't feel that way because you're people watching, you're seeing people, you might be chatting with the person who's next to you, etc. Those things all help. So I think that those I think are some of the key things that you have to look at as well. I think the other thing that you also have to look at doing as well is within your organization, looking to recruit people that are willing to take the vaccine and that will rally people to come. Because in some cases, you may have various offices, so for example, in my situation, we have staff that is in over 1,000 locations across Trinidad and Tobago. So yes, we will use social media, you will use intranet, we'll use all of those things, but nothing beats the fact that if my coworker is going and he say, come, all are we going? It really does help, but you have to find those particular champions within your organization. In social media, we call them influencers, but these are real influencers because they are daily part of the co-workers' lives. So they're the people that they can talk to, etc., and that kind of thing. And this is where you really have to put aside your own bias. Where you have anti-vax information that is possibly some of the most ridiculous information that you have heard, and you just really want to go, boy, you're talking stupidness. But really and truly, let me just say this as well. As communication professionals, we were taught to make people think. That's part of it. Communicate the facts, communicate the information, make sure that people understand it, make sure that people are able to think about it. And over the last few years, I've realized that, and it's the influence of who we would not like to name, Donald Trump. He communicated with feeling. And when I say communicated with feeling, he played on people's fears, he played on people's anger, he played on people's angst. So that no matter what, and if somebody feels a particular way, fact's not going to work. So you have to communicate with a certain level of feeling to engender a certain level of joy, confidence, hope, to battle the fact that there are people who are trying to engender fear and conspiracy with them. So that if you're very dismissive and you're not trying to say, so somebody says to you, I hear in 2 years, everybody going to take the vaccine going and dead. And I'm sure we've all heard that. And so part of it is that you have to kind of say, you know, I heard that as well. And you know me, I had to go and check. So I went and I checked particular sources. I read up on it. I spoke to other doctor friends. I asked them if is it possible that you could have something that could delay over, I could take it now and in 2 years time, the effect now taking place, etc., etc. And that is not particularly likely. I hear that vaccine, you're getting blood clots and you go dead. And I tell people, I heard that too. But then when I realized that the chances of that are as sure as if I go outside in sunlight and get struck by lightning, which can happen, but that is the level of risk that you're talking about. So you have to say that, you know what, your fear is not invalid, but you have to put it within a particular context.
Yeah, I agree, Adrian. I agree there. So we will stick a pin on that for a minute because I want to bring in Colin, because we're coming to that because that is what I wanted to talk to you about, Adrian, afterwards. We'll be talking about how do we manage the messaging when it coming to the concerns or people who rebut with, you know, with that anti-vaxxer stance. But we will come back to it just now soon after we talk with Colin, who's in his capacity as head of public relations at Digicel, can explain some of the experiences he has had or some of the lessons he has learned as a result of, you know, working within a crisis, even though it's not his crisis, but it's a national.
Oh, thanks so much. And thanks again to the entire Pratt committee and team for having me yet again. These Pratt chats are really timely. I want to echo the sentiments there from Adrian. So where we are, experiences, wow, so many. I think I speak for many of us or all of us where it's been 15 months of constant communication, 15 months of crisis communication, never ending, 15 months of outing flames and trying to stifle fires and trying to ignite passion and all of these things. And of course, as we know, everybody's tired. However, we can't stop. So that's one of the first things I want to get out there is that I would have seen, or we would have seen from the start of the pandemic, you know, many organizations start on a big campaigns and communications drive on different things, and then you see that the burnout would have happened, which is natural. I mean, we all are human, and it happens. However, you know, when we think about it on the bigger scale of things, is that, you know, we have a responsibility and we're put in particular positions because of a service and level of duty that we have to our various, and we love the word publics, right? So to our internal staff, to our external stakeholders, to all of our suppliers and directors and all of these people, you know, as the comms team and PR people, we are the ones that everybody looks at. We are the ones that have to still be writing speeches, still issue press releases, to the point of where like, oh, another press release, oh my God, another one, right? Or another statement or another activity to engage staff. And the reality is that we just can't stop, you know? So one of the main things I've learned is that this idea of personal responsibility and drive. And of course, that also comes with having a great team around you, that finding that buddy or that partner, or even in the company where, yes, you can vent, you can have your personal moments, but as we know, sometimes you just need to get out there and ensure that we get the job done, because the job that we've been entrusted with right now is so critically important. I mean, we are literally the connections between our various organizations and all of our customer stakeholders, etc., who are just home relying on the information that we put out there. And that if we don't put the information out there, then, you know, there's a total disconnection. So that's one thing I just wanted to put out there as a start. in terms of overall communication support and in the corporate sector, I would say from the start, be responsible in terms of understanding that as a corporate citizen, you have a responsibility to society, whether it be a matter of listening to your various customers, your internal stakeholders, your employees, understanding what their needs are, and then speaking up when necessary. So Digicel, as you all know, I mean, it's no brainer. We are one of the very loud companies. We like to do it big and red and everything. And, you know, even throughout the pandemic, we ensured that we couldn't back down, because as everyone was moving toward being home and stuff like that, we understood that, you know, there was this desire for people to hold on to things that seemed normal. So even I'm online and I'm home, people were suffering from anxiety, people were getting stressed, people were having all sorts of personal issues. And we made a conscious decision as a company to say, you know what, we're going to be there with TNT. We are a digital operator and this is the digital space. So step one of what we needed to do was to listen to what people's concerns were, and then constantly frame our communication going externally to address all of those different concerns nationally. And then, of course, when we look at nationally, government comes into it. So what we were doing was we were basically taking our cue from the government and supporting and reinforcing the messages that they had within our various publics. So from the start of the pandemic, for instance, number one thing people wanted to find out was, you know, their concerns. Oh, we all are working from home. Is my internet going to be sufficient? Am I going to have correct bandwidth to ensure that I can work from home or have homeschooling or log on, or is my cable TV going to work that I can get the updates from? Because as we know, all of these services that we all are using, including this live right now, is built on a network of connectivity. It's based on internet, data, fiber, broadband. So from that start, we would have then started tailoring our messages. Okay, cool. Let's reinforce to everyone that don't worry, the infrastructure we have is sufficient. We'll keep you connected. We're actually going to boost your speeds in many cases. We're investing in a lot of technology so that we alleviated that fear that people had from the start. As it rolled on, of course, the next thing was stay home, stay safe. That was one of the main messages that would have come out from last year. From a corporate entity, we would have gotten that cue from the government, and then we would have said, great, how do we do this? Using the tools that we had on everybody's phone, for example, on their devices, we would have changed our network identifier. So at the top left-hand corner, instead of seeing Digicel, you'd have then seen stay safe or be safe or a message like that. And then at multiple touch points, as an essential service, you know, our stores all were kept open. So we used that opportunity to use all of these screens and all these stores dedicated totally to COVID information, reinforce with our employees, things like also making tough decisions quickly. So last year, I remember there was a call. We were still new in the pandemic, and people were saying, you know, I don't want to come out to pay my bill. I'm scared. I need to stay connected, but I have to stay home. You know, that is three things that didn't really go together well. So throughout that, you know, we just kept building out all of our online solutions. We stopped disconnections. We liaised with customers to give them extensions on payments. We allowed people to pay late without any charges. And that came from us listening. So going back to what I said before, I really think that listening is critically important, because based on what the other presenters have said tonight as well on vaccine hesitation and these things, it all came from listening, from understanding, okay, these are some of the concerns that my fans or my group have, and this is how I can address it. Of course, reinforcing the protocols have always been critical, and it has to be done across all touch points. So corporate-wise, we would have done it, stores and screens, signage throughout the office, changing email signatures, so including a be safe message at the bottom of everybody's email within the company, putting stuff on our intranet and SharePoint, having HSC teams constantly do briefings with staff, all staff town halls. When COVID first started, we had daily emails from our CEO to the employees with updates on, okay, this is what's going on around the world, this is what's happening in the business, these are something myth busters. Okay, this is not how you get COVID, this is how you get COVID, and stuff like that. Of course, as people's needs changed, those emails changed in frequency. They went to once weekly, then once every other week, then once every 3 weeks, and then the messaging within that started changing. Again, on cue from what was nationally needed. So we all understood the wash your hands, wear your mask, social distance, cough in the crooks of your hand. And the last one was, stay home if you're sick. we constantly like reinforce those things over and over. And then because you have to understand your audience as well, we then try to figure out, okay, when you say things over and over and over, people then start ignoring you. So how do you then keep people engaged in the messaging? And because we're an entertainment-based society, Digicel looked at all of the tools that we had available to us, and also the needs of the public from mental health, stress, anxiety. And we decided to take the approach of using a lot of entertainment-based things to reinforce messages. So under the banner There With You was where we started. And the notion was, everybody is at home for the first time in 100 years, forced to stay inside. People are feeling alone. How can we help? Well, you know what? Reinforce that idea of you're not alone. We're here with you. You know what? We're going to keep you entertained. So we started these home concert series where different artists would be hired by Digicel, which also fulfilled that need of what that public was speaking up, saying like, hey, artists, here we are. We're not making any money. All of our carnivals have been canceled. All of our shows have been canceled. Nobody's looking at us. And we said, you know what? Let's engage all these artists. Let's pay them to do these home concerts. Let's show people that these people are performing at home. And throughout the concert, let's reinforce all the messaging. Wash your hands, social distance, do all the activities and protocols that you're meant to do. And constantly, that has kind of been our approach of using entertainment and different things to bring people's attention or to have them focus on the brand, and then use those while they're there, communicate with them in different ways. So currently right now, over the last month, we realized that mental health issues have been popping up as well. So we've been engaged in an entire mental health campaign online. Each day we have different instructors doing things from yoga, counselors speaking, using our brand ambassadors, our 8 Soca Star brand ambassadors, and having them tell their personal stories about dealing with depression, dealing with the anxiety that they faced over the last year, what has worked for them, or if they kept positive. Because adding faces that people can relate to much of the content we found was extremely helpful throughout this. And similarly, as I go back to the point of listening, I think listening was critically important. If you follow the trajectory of how we came into COVID, connectivity questions was where we would have started. Then we rolled on into anxiety, fear at home, these kind of things. Concert series helped with that. Then we rolled into, okay, we need devices for children. So then we jumped up and we said, great, we can do that. We can sponsor, I think we sponsored 69 schools, over 2,000 devices to children. And then it kept evolving. Okay, that conversation has changed. What's the next thing that they need? Okay, they need this again. And constantly we've kind of tailored the brand toward doing that. So I know that the big question that all of us are having is how do we keep people entertained or interested in the content when it's almost nauseating seeing the same messages and you start to ignore certain things. And of course we become complacent. We're human beings. We're not accustomed living in with this rigid sense of don't talk, don't touch anybody, stay in your zone, stay inside. So that's been one of the challenges. We've constantly been trying to figure, okay, what are people saying? So for instance, we would have surveyed our staff. We do this periodically, quite often actually, to gauge their feedback on what's their mental health, what's their stage, or how are they feeling. People started feeling overwhelmed just from being at home so much and trying to balance working from home and schooling. Because even though many people have not been working as an essential service, we've never stopped working. For the entire last year, we've never stopped working, right? So for the employees, we ramped up EAP sessions. We've had town halls with all the employees just to keep them engaged. We've given employees more access to more counseling sessions and workshops and smaller team huddles and stuff like that. Actually, tomorrow, for instance, we have something called water cooler drop-in, where it's an all-staff, I'll call it town hall type activity, but it's very informal. It's literally, we're just going to be having some fun. So the idea was, everybody's working hard, everybody's stressed out. Let's all take a 15-minute break at the same time. So this thing is literally 15 minutes. It's totally informal. We'll be chatting with the CEO, finding out what his preferences on movies are for Father's Day weekend. What is he doing to keep entertained? What video games he plays? What is his favorite? Like what music he's doing? We're running trivia with the employees, giving away things like grocery vouchers and hampers that they can also then donate to families that they know by answering. But the idea here was that, again, in listening, we found out that one of the main challenges that we were facing as a brand was that our employees were burnt out. So these activities, we launched a campaign called You Matter, where we constantly put things in front of employees that they can get discounts on, or free stuff, or things to donate, or they can win a flat screen TV. And these things are without occasion. These things happen weekly within the brand. And that's how we kind of started keeping people engaged, so that they didn't feel so alone at home. So I know I put a mouthful of things out there, but these are just so many multiple things that happen at the same time. Yeah.
There's so many things, but what I gathered from everybody on the panel is about listening to what's happening on the ground. I want to take back the discussion back to Minister. I know that from a perspective of your experience in the regional corporation, I think one of your things has always been to listen to the people. Do you think listening has helped a lot in this perspective and in this particular situation when you were talking about communicating and getting the messaging from government, I mean, on an even keel? What say you on that?
Well, Joanne, yes, you are correct. One of the things, of course, coming into the role of an MP and a minister, but of course coming from local government, is that as a councillor, and it comes back, I think it was something that Adrian may have brought up about peer influencers. And you would find that as a councillor, you are in your community, you are on the ground, and you are about real-time service. So yeah, that sort of two-way communication is critical. I have found, of course, you know, I've said it before, we've moved through phases in this, and Colin also spoke about it. And I really want to come back and congratulate you all again. This conversation has really been eye-opening even for me. As we move through the phases, the messages that we are getting and the way that we have to communicate continues to shift. It has been, as I would have said earlier in an earlier conversation, my own experience has not been one of vaccine hesitancy. It has not been that. My peer group, even in my constituency, it has not been my experience. And of course, very often, as the Minister of Communications, when I roll out to the different vaccine distribution sites, of course, you're seeing the uptake. So it's very easy to get caught in the mindset that hesitancy is not an issue. Of course, in this conversation here I am, and especially from Daniel's contribution, we are hearing it, and I have heard it on the different social media platforms. I was in a Twitter space a few weeks ago with the Attorney General, and that did come up. I was in another Twitter space as a listener with Rome was leading it, TTPA was leading it, and the Minister of Tourism was there, and that did come up as well. So yes, it is critical. I think it is even, if I could say, more critical now, because of course in our initial phase it was really about speaking to the facts of the virus itself, getting people to adopt a behavior. So you're speaking to the realities of the WHO behavioral protocols. You're speaking to the positive numbers, facts and figures around that. Now that we have moved to a space where we are talking about vaccines being present, vaccines being rolled out, and then dealing with all the issues that you get there, it is very critical. That communication, that listening, that is why, of course, platforms like this, platforms like Twitter Space, where you're speaking to a younger demographic, because I keep coming back to the slide that Dr. Hines in particular uses, where he speaks about infections by age, and by gender. And 53%, I think, was the last figure I saw. 53% of the positive cases lie in that 25 to 49 age group. You know, so I think while we're listening, we also need to be very clear as to who we need to be speaking to and getting feedback from. And that in itself should be driving, or will be driving, our communications efforts. We at the Ministry of Communications have really stepped in now to take more of an active role in the messaging that is coming out of the Ministry of Health to assist them. So not just supporting through, obviously, TTT, our ability to assist from a production standpoint, and also utilization of government time, which is a tool, obviously, that we have across mainstream media, but also to just assist them as we get that information and where we should be getting that information. I have found that coming back, and I made a few notes here. Adrian was talking about that story, and because and yo. One of the biggest, I suppose, eye-opening things for me was just about 24 hours or 48 hours after taking my first dose. I did a video and put it out on social media about my own experience and the uptake that I saw from there, the interactions that were on the platform, but also direct messaging and private messaging. To me, just to ask questions, that was a revelation. And I think that as we become more front-facing with our communications, and by that, maybe I'm not, as I'm speaking to communicators here, professional communicators, maybe I'm not using the correct term, but what I mean is, as we speak more from not from me as a minister telling you why you should take this and why that does have a role, but highlighting the experience of the person who has taken it and have them drive that narrative, have them speak to it, because people want to see themselves. You know, it is something that by nature we want to see ourselves, or somebody who we think either represents us or represents the best of us. And I think that has really sort of been our focus now in our communication, but it is really driven from trying to listen. And of course, we're listening to what is being said here. I have pages of notes that I'm taking, because I really think it adds real value.
Okay, great. So now that we have reached this point where we are asking questions, one question came in for you, Minister. The question is...
I'm sure it's not the only one.
You spoke about, this is the question. You spoke about consistency of message across all ministries and state sectors. How will this be manifest going forward as the government progresses its vaccination rollout? Will we see some more ministers speaking to this strategy in their own ministries and the areas under their purview? So we were talking just now about peer communications. So the question is asking now, what about the other ministers and their ministries? How are they going to connect with that communication?
So I think one, it's a good question and a valid question. The short answer is yes. We will try as a whole of government approach to speak to vaccination as it applies to our own ministries. So again, a perfect example of non-Minister of Health Communication would be Randall Mitchell as the Minister of Tourism, Culture and the Arts. It is obviously a very topical conversation as relating to the role of the artist, the position that the government has taken to support the artists with vaccinations, and of course to assist them, while it may not be a reality right now in Trinidad, but to be able to leave, to earn a living outside of Trinidad and to find themselves back home. The minister would have spoken on various platforms about the efforts of the ministry to not just facilitate the vaccination process, which would have taken place, I believe, maybe about 2 or 3 weeks ago, Daniel. I think that was down at UTT in Monroe Road last week. Okay. But yeah, so you would have seen that. But he has also spoken about the Ministry of Tourism, tourism, culture, and the arts, acting almost as a liaison officer to facilitate these artists as they go abroad and coming back in. We all obviously this is not the minister or the MP speaking, we're just a citizen. We are all looking forward to the potential reopening of our borders, and the Prime Minister has echoed a very positive position on that. Obviously, numbers need to be in a place, and we are seeing that trend. But yes, we are seeing that is something that will take place. An example again is, I believe it was on Monday, I would have been on 96.1 talking with Charles and with Goofy as a whole Woodbrook and Fatima boy. I was talking to them, and I am hoping to facilitate the minister, Minister Mitchell, to do that as well, to get on there. Again, it is about speaking in the places that we have not found ourselves speaking over the last 15 months, expanding our messaging platform, and I think you're seeing it. The Attorney General has spoken, the Minister of Education has spoken, the Minister of Health has spoken, and other communicators within all the different ministries. And my role as Minister of Communications, obviously being here, and anywhere else that I am invited to speak, where I think we can add value to the communications effort and drive uptake.
Yes. Okay. That is good. I wanted to toss to Danielle. Minister, I'll come back to you because another question popped up. I want to give everybody a chance. Danielle, we have a question for you. How does Tribe intend to energize the culture-loving population so they feel safe to return to mass, as in MASS and not MAS, outdoor events when that time comes, which is integral to the entertainment and cultural industry? You all have any plans afoot in how to establish that communications? Has that begun?
Sure. So that communication has definitely started already. The entire sector, the entire cultural sector has just been flattened by what has happened with the pandemic. And I mean, it spans far and wide. There's so many people that are integral parts of our sector that we haven't had the opportunity to operate, to do anything. And, it's easy to look at carnival and carnival bands, but this goes to everybody who's acting, different cultural groups, your pan men, everybody. I mean, it is really widespread, the people that are affected. And then, of course, we have the spin-off industries that work with us. That would be like the bars and food vendors, venues, everything, event coordinators. And then when we're talking events, as they point out, each time we have a conversation, it's easy to talk about the mass cultural events, etc. But then we also have events like weddings and small events and corporate events that have not been happening as well. We are working in collaboration with the TTPA. Rome has really done a great job of driving the process as the president of the TTPA, and we have submitted many suggestions and proposals, but we are approaching this with the entire team. So while we at Tribe may have certain ideas or things that we want to do, we are only as strong as our weakest link within the industry. So the approach is really for the industry as a whole to drive out protocols and how we're going to operate, what is going to be a minimum standard. There's a lot of conversation around when events restart, how will we safely do it, how will we open back up the industry, and that is really a collaborative discussion that we're taking with everyone. We have Dwayne Nobriga, who's one of our directors, who's very active on the TTPA as well, who represents for us throughout those discussions. But it's great. We're having the TTPA chats now on Twitter. They're on every Friday. As Minister de Nobriga said, Minister Mitchell was on last week speaking with them. And it's opened up a lot of great discussion. I mean, we've started with the soca artists. They are now getting to move out and move around. but there's an entire sector to restart. And that phased approach, we are very happy to be included in that conversation as we go forward.
Great, great. Because I know that people are getting a bit antsy about, so what happens next, and looking for some kind of hope that, things, if is anything that has to get back to normal, is the event sector, and ensuring that at least we could hold on to that. I think a lot of people are feeling that. So I'm glad that at least, the work is afoot, and that, sooner or later, when the time comes, we're able to execute. All right, so Adrian, I'm coming back to you now. We were talking earlier about biases, talking about the anti-vaxxers and how to deal with them. And I think that is one of the questions I would really like us to continue. I don't know if you are able to incorporate this with another question that we have, talking about how do we deal with pandemic fatigue of the work population in both the private and public sector as we move forward. I know that is a general question, but the way how Adrian was talking about earlier, how we respond to certain things, maybe Adrian could start us off, and then we can continue the conversation from there.
All right, so the thing is, in terms of anti-vaxxers, you have to really put aside your own preconceived bias about it. And that was something that I had to learn to do as well, because in my personal life, it had gotten to a point where I've blocked so many people on so many platforms because I just didn't really want to hear it, because it was really getting to me on a personal level. And I had to eventually take a step back and see that first of all, it's a situation where some of them feel that they're standing up for a cause. They're standing up for a cause by not doing something. I'm not getting vaccinated. So you have to understand that as passionate as you may feel about getting vaccinated and that this is how we're going to get back to where we need to be, a lot of anti-vaxxers are very, very passionate about it. And at the end of the day, as I mentioned before, it's about a feeling. So even if you present with particular facts, they believe or they feel. So I had a situation where I told someone, the facts are, and she's like, yes, I know those are the facts, but I believe, and that's essentially what you're dealing with.
Yeah.
I think one of the things that you have to also appreciate is that you're not going to win every argument. You're not going to convince everyone. So what you have to kind of figure out is that who you're going to expend your energy on, because there's some people that you're just never going to be able to convince. What you want to be able to do is to remove a lot of that misinformation of people who may be kind of on the fence and not too sure. So as I mentioned before, the idea that in 2 years' time, everyone's going to die, or the fact that Colin and Digicel put in a chip in your arm to track and see where you're going. You have all these myths that are coming out and so forth. And part of it is you have to learn to listen to it with a certain level of empathy and say, you know what, I heard that too. And I wasn't sure I believed it, but I went and I checked anyway, because, there's a little bit of doubt in my mind about it as well. So that way, they don't feel that you are dismissing them immediately. You know what I mean? But at the same time, you're also quantifying it and saying, I had a little doubt in my mind about it. So you're kind of getting on their level, but kind of saying it's not likely to be so. And then you present that particular sort of alternative information as well. I think as well, being able to break it down to something that someone will understand is also something that is relatable. So Daniel mentioned the doctor that explained about the fact that the taking the vaccine is like giving your body a different sort of army, etc. You have to find analogies that are going to work. So I remember there was a discussion at my office. There was a discussion among people, and they were having a very spirited discussion about vaccines. And so one gentleman was saying, but partner, would you feel comfortable with a teacher teaching your children if that teacher hasn't been vaccinated? He's like, well, I wouldn't have a problem with that. He said, okay, well, how about this? Would you feel comfortable if there was a lice outbreak at the school and every teacher took the shampoo except the teacher teaching your child? Would you want that teacher to teach your child? He was like, well, no. And he was like, yeah, COVID 1,000,000 times worse than that. And at least you can take the shampoo. But if for some reason the MISC comes up, how are you going to deal with that with your child? And so it got to you, and you saw the light bulb go off in the other guy's head, and he was like, oh, I never thought about it like that. So sometimes you have to relate it to experiences that people may have had, and sometimes you have to take the discussion completely away from COVID to something else that people can relate to. So I think that's important. In terms of fatigue and workplace fatigue, etc., that is very much dependent on the culture of the organization, so that, and also as well, it's something that you can inculcate definitely within your particular department and particular unit, in terms of the mask wearing, the social distancing, etc. But at the same time, you just really have to remind people that as much as we are getting there, we're not quite there as yet. And I think too as well that when it is that you also, and we don't like to necessarily face the negative, etc. But I think the difference is now is that everyone knows someone who has gotten COVID. So it is not something that is abstract. It is absolutely very real. And in many cases, unfortunately, we have known someone who has passed as well. So the idea of this virus not being real, or it not reaching home, or not reaching the office, it certainly has. So I think that it is, and remind people, it is when we let our guard down that that we allow the virus to flourish.
Yes, agreed. Colin, you want to chime in on there, since it is that you were talking about mental health when we last spoke. Do you think that is something that you have to continue discussing with your teams to get through, the pandemic fatigue?
Of course. I mean, this was no quick mess, and there's no quick solution. It took us many months to get here, and it's going to take us many more months to get back out of it, even beyond the regular face value sort of issues that people may have. Of course, the underlying issues and the scarring that would have occurred is deep. We have found out, and I encourage you guys to tune into the various sessions. Of course, they're available on social media, Facebook, Instagram, but also across the digital app, so you could play them back on our Play Go app or Go Loud. And the thing is, on these various sessions, they not only deal with the obvious things, they deal with a lot of the underlying issues, things about when people get back out, senses of personal challenges that people will have, because beyond the idea of anxiety and fear of going outside and that type of thing, and depression caused from that, there's also the deeper side of things where many people feel that they're not enough, that they have not been able to provide for their families, that they have failed, that they've been put to a test and they have not been able to pass the mark, or that their life is a failure because they've worked for 40 years and now they can't even support themselves for a year, and things like that. So with the mental health side of things, we've been hearing the stories of many people, many of them quite notable, because as Adrian would have mentioned earlier, people like hearing from their peers and seeing people that they can relate to tell their stories, and having as well the professional side of things, and having those professionals to help explain to you what your feelings mean and stuff like that. Not only can you do this internally, like we've been doing with our employees and having counseling sessions, but externally by, of course, doing like what Tribe is doing, and using the social media to communicate and have people have a forum that they can share common feelings and common interests. Within your company, I would ask this to our practitioners online: how many of you have engaged in some sort of actual staff intervention that allow the employees who feel the same sort of way, who have common interests, common feelings, to express themselves in an open forum? What type of activities have been facilitated? We are not experts in this field, but experts do exist. There are so many organizations out there. We work with Family Planning Association. They have a lot of really fantastic counselors there that do EAP sessions that cover a wide range of topics, from relatively wide range of topics. And the employees, we've made a lot of these sessions accessible to them, and we've also allowed them to they're voluntary, and to our surprise, when we would expect 20 or 30 people to log on, you would see 180 people log on, and we'd be like, whoa, like, okay, we didn't realize that so many people were interested in having these conversations. And then when you look at the comment thread and you start to see how many of them are sharing, oh yeah, I feel that way too, or this worked for me, or you realize that even though we are apart physically, that by doing things like this, you can really help bring people together and galvanize their movement toward one common goal. Common goal is getting through this right now, getting the vaccines, getting back to some sort of pre-COVID normalcy. But then beyond that is also mental support groups, how we can help each other through different things. So, yeah.
Okay, good. So we talked about, support and mental support. Minister, there was something we were talking about listening earlier. It was a question in the back of my mind. So I hope I'm taking the opportunity now to ask you. We were talking about listening and putting your ears to the ground. Do you think in this scenario, the regional corporations would be able to assist in getting some of the messaging that you need to get to folks who may not have that outreach technically, meaning via phone, via WhatsApp, via Facebook, and only depend on newspapers or what they hear on the radio. And there may be some conflict or some biases that already exist there. Do you think that the regional corporations are able to assist in that sort of communicating with the grassroots in order for them to understand the scenario and what could happen next?
Definitely. I think we had spoken about, you're correct, we had spoken about it earlier, especially coming from local government. Most definitely, there is a real role there for the regional corporation, not only through the councillors, but also the corporations themselves, through their health departments and whatnot, to drive the messaging of one, the truth around vaccines, two, to address vaccine hesitancy, three, behavior change, because I think as everyone on the panel has spoken about, vaccines are our first line of defense. So while we acknowledge that the only way through this is through vaccination, vaccines in and of themselves are a tool. We do have to still maintain, as we get to a position of a high percentage of our population being vaccinated, we have to still adhere to these new behavioral norms of, as Colin was about, wear your mask, wash your hands, watch your distance, try to limit your movements as best as possible. But that is ongoing. We do see that now. I can tell you in my role as an MP, I work very, very closely with the councillors in Diego Martin Central. It's critical, and this is not unique to me. I see it with my colleagues who are also MPs. It is critical to drive that messaging through all the arms of government. And local government is a critical service deliverer. There's a unique space for these councillors, in particular, because they are in the community. They are speaking to the man on the ground, as you were saying, but they're also speaking, while they're speaking to the man on the ground, they're also speaking to the old person, because you tend to find that a large portion of our aged population really does avail itself of our local government system. That older population does know how to utilize the services of the constituency office, and it's critical that we drive that messaging. It is also important that we try to find different ways to drive that message. So even in my own constituency now, again supported by the councillors, I'm going to be rolling out sort of like an election style messaging campaign. So truck going down the road, music playing, of course, music that is hopeful and speaks to the emotion of hope and moving forward, but also interspersed with messages around vaccination, messages around behavior. It is critical that we utilize every avenue that we have to speak to our citizens and speak across all our platforms. So definitely, yeah, it is direct intervention through the councillor, direct intervention through your MP's office is extremely critical now.
Okay, so would you consider that in particular to be like the government strategy, the official government strategy, or is that just a segment of it moving forward? Or is that just a part of the pie?
So I think it is part of the pie. I think we all, I mean, every MP, every councillor has a unique market in their constituents. So no constituency is the same. How you address that sort of direct intervention changes from constituency to constituency, from demographic to demographic in terms of age. That is critical. I mean, the way that I would speak to the little old lady is clearly different, because he or she, that older person, is invariably listening to the messaging. They are hearing it on talk radio. They are reading the papers. They are watching the press briefings. They are getting the message. As we get to younger and younger demographics, as we get to a more youthful population, we do have to drive that messaging. I can't tell you that it is part of the government approach. I think that every MP is going to utilize every tool that they have. This is a tool that I have and I'm rolling out. If it is successful, we may see it being adopted in different places. So I'm happy to be a guinea pig in that sense.
Okay, so basically what it is starting one stop, and hopefully that everybody else will follow the chain reaction that you're looking for.
Once it works, that's the most important thing. However, whatever works, I mean, you keep trying. I mean, if it's one thing we've learned is just how fluid this situation is. You know, so we have to keep trying. We have to keep trying different interventions. We have to keep trying different messaging. We have to keep trying speaking in different places. It is so critical to not pigeonhole ourselves into one method, one mode of communication. It is just to speak to as many people as we possibly can.
All right, great. Thank you so much, Mr. Minister. Okay, as we're about to wrap up, because I know that we have been talking for a while, it was almost 8:30. I didn't know where the time went, because all the conversations have been very, very, very interesting, because we get in different angles and perspectives as to what is happening with regards to communication, with regards to how we are launching some of the messaging for other people to understand. But I want everybody to answer me this as this probably what we can consider the final question. What is your call to action? What are your next steps? I know the minister talked about moving forward and making sure do it like old school, have a big speaker on a car and letting people hearing songs and messaging. But what else what do you want people to know? What do you want people to understand about all of this? I mean, at the end of the day, of all this communication campaign, what it is do you want people to know?
So, Joanne, you starting with me?
Yeah, starting with you.
Okay. So firstly, as we are closing, let me just take the time firstly to thank the president and the executive of Pratt, to thank all the panelists, and of course you as the moderator. This has been amazing for me. Like I told you, I have pages of notes all around me, and I've been writing as people have been speaking. Way forward and our next steps. Yes, direct intervention. Yes, music shop going down the road. Of course, I'm saying that I still have to speak to the Commissioner of Police and get permission for it, but I'm sure that will come. That is one way we're looking at it. I think the critical message here is that we need to be partners in this. This is all of us getting to the finish line. This is all of us getting through it across all the sectors. So it is so critical that everyone sees themselves as a partner in this. Obviously, as the Minister of Communications, I do get a chance to see a lot of the mischief that is out there. Some of it is really creative, and the Simon looks at a lot of it and says, "That's funny," you know. I think it was Adrian was talking, or was it? No, it was Colin was talking about press releases, you know, and press release after press release. We're starting to see press releases being used as a tool of mischief. So one, it is about partnership. I think that if we all see ourselves as partners, if we all do our part to work against misinformation, to get not just the facts out there, but to address the emotion of where we are. That is a reality. COVID fatigue is a reality. People are tired. 15 months later, I think it's very, it's a unique situation where the people who are speaking are just as tired as the people who they're speaking to, because we're all living through it. I think, so if there's one message I would like to drive, it is, please, those of us who are actively working to educate our individual markets, our individual populations, our circles of influence, don't give up. If I continue to do that, if you know someone that is an anti-vaxxer, I love driving the message of, please find spaces that are sources of accurate information. The Prime Minister made a statement a few weeks ago that really resonated with me, and it was that if you can't help, don't hurt. You know, so let's all see ourselves as partners in this. Wherever the Ministry of Communications, OPM Comms, can assist, please reach out to us. My role as the Minister of Communications is to be a facilitator. So everyone who is here, I mean, feel free to reach out. You know, we are here to help to drive that message as best as we can. Wherever we can add value, we definitely will. So thanks again. I am looking forward to be able to roll out some of the lessons that I've learned here.
Okay, great. Daniel, do you have anything to say? Talking about closing points, what's the call to action next?
Sure. So our organization, I mean, we are pro-vaccination. We are not ashamed to say it. We are very open about it. And our drive is going to be to continue to educate. That is really our aim. We speak about, you know, when we were talking about influencers and everything, we all see ourselves as advocates. That is what we are really here to do. We are advocating for people to get the vaccine. We will continue to share the information necessary to convert other people to advocates with us and encourage people to use their voice and to go ahead and post that you got your vaccine and answer people's questions. Because all those people that are hesitant, you know, it's easy to focus on the anti-vaxxers because they make the most noise, they are the most vocal. But there's a huge amount of people that are hesitant, and those are the easiest people to really provide information to and get them on board with your cause and on board with where you're trying to go. And that continues to be our drive. We are here to provide information in digestible pieces, information that it's easy to relate to and easy to go ahead and spread the word, with a hope that people will then reach a point where they say, you know what, I feel like I've gotten enough information. I'm comfortable to make a decision to get my vaccine. And once we get to that point where we feel like that desire is there and people are ready to get their vaccine, we will jump on board with everything that's being pushed out by government in order to put out the information of how to get your vaccine, where to go, and any other relevant information. So, I mean, I'm really looking forward to the next few months. This is a really hopeful time for our country as more vaccines come in and people get vaccinated. We're starting to see the light at the end of the tunnel. From an entertainment sector perspective and a cultural perspective, we at Tribe, being some of the biggest players in the market, we continue to help drive conversation and influence conversations, and also to support everybody in these sectors. We push along to try and reopen. I mean, our aim is to reopen as safely as possible, and we will support all efforts in the country to make sure that that happens and that we put protocols in place as a standard across the industry.
Great, thank you, Daniel. Adrian, what is your call to action?
Well, I think that I want to continue doing what I'm doing right now, what we're all doing right now for that matter. But I am now as well beginning to look forward about maybe a couple of months, 3 months from now, when the government has rolled out their mass vaccination plan and that there are enough vaccines in the country for everybody. And what is that going to look like in a society where we have a majority that is vaccinated and a minority that is unvaccinated? And how do we necessarily treat with that from a professional perspective. Those are the difficult conversations that we're going to be having from a government level, come right down in terms of how do we treat and deal with that, and how do we respond to customers and clients who may feel one way or the other. The fact is that what I say to people is that after 9/11, it changed the way that we travel, it changed the way that we interacted and we crossed borders, etc. COVID-19 has been far more intrusive even than that. As horrible as 9/11 was, COVID-19 has been far more intrusive than that because it has affected us at a granular level. We all personally feel it. So that having those conversations as to what that is going to look like and how we're going to treat with that is something that I am now beginning to study and look and read upon and get legal perspectives and get psychological perspectives, etc. And from a personal point of view, I'm also beginning to, because after all, vaccination is a personal choice. But from a personal point of view, I am now beginning to develop my boundaries within my peer group, within my friend group, in terms of what I will feel comfortable with in terms of a lime at my house or a lime at a restaurant or who I'm going to go on vacation with, etc. Those are some of the decisions that I am now making as well, that I would also be encouraging people to also determine what are going to be your personal boundaries in a world of people that are vaccinated versus unvaccinated, without necessarily crossing into an area where you can be perceived as being prejudiced or discriminatory. But bearing in mind that you also want to be in a situation where everyone feels safe, where you want to protect yourself, you want to protect your family, but you also want to protect those people who are unvaccinated, but may not necessarily want to take the stand of saying, well, cool, I'm not vaccinated, let me continue to mask, let me continue to distance, let me continue to stay home, because of course FOMO is going to happen. And we've seen, based on the models as well, that as societies begin to open up, that there's an uptake in increased infections because, and especially among the unvaccinated. So those are some of the areas that I'll be looking at moving forward.
Okay. And Colin.
Hi.
Yes. What is your call to action, or Digicel's call to action in this?
Digicel's call to action. Interesting. You know, it's been so multifaceted over the last 15 months that, you know, firstly, we will continue to use, I think this is where I started, saying be responsible. So we'll continue to be a responsible corporate citizen. You know, we will continue to support efforts across the length and breadth of the needs of the country. And of course, using, as I mentioned before, taking our cue from government, you know, continuing to support the government's efforts to keep us safe, continue to reinforcing the messaging, continue to using our various tools, our ambassadors, our employees, so that, you know, our take on it is, if we manage ourselves, meaning our internal publics, our staff, their families and friends, if we manage ourselves, that's one less thing that you have to worry about. And we just hope that, you know, if everybody, every company, every organization takes that same approach, if everybody manages themselves in a responsible way, so if, regardless of the company you work for, if you take your company under your wings and you say, my employees are my family, I need to make sure that they are safe, that they are doing what is necessary, that I give them all of the information that they need to make informed decisions, that similarly, Digicel is pro-vaccination, basically. I think in Jamaica, our chairman would have donated $1 million toward purchasing vaccines for that country. So definitely we are big on getting out there. We've been communicating with our staff, putting the information in front of them. Again, constantly of saying, your family, your employees, your family base, I'm talking from the corporate perspective, of course, is that this is our little universe. You know, beyond that, our customers also form part of our universe. So if everybody out there, every company, think about how many corporations, how many businesses we have out there. You have a mailing list. Don't just use it to market a product for sale. You know, use it for good. Use it to tell people, hey, this is what you can do to stay safe. This is what you can do so we can get back to some level of normalcy. This is what you can do to protect those around you. This is the type of behavior and actions we need. Do you have to come up with the information on your own? You don't. The information exists. There are credible sources all around. The government and the Ministry of Communications and Health have been doing such a great job of putting information there for us to access. So yes, there exists the gap where different people in different silos throughout the country aren't getting all the messages. However, if each of us really assume our responsibility of being a custodian for those messages, and that we can really help as communicators to get the correct message across by using our intranet, using our emailing list, using our social media posts, using our company's Facebook and Instagram, and all these nice things we like to do to sell products and services to people. Like, this is the time we need to galvanize. So moving forward, that's where we are. Continued support for the efforts to keep us all safe, as well as continuing to keep people connected, very important. And of course, continuing to be responsible and encouraging others to do that.
Great, thank you, Colin. So long and short of it is communications is dynamic. Communications is a challenge, particularly when you're in a pandemic, particularly in a crisis. And it takes a lot to get the messaging across. But what is most important from what I've learned here is how you listen, because listening is very important. I mean, it's one thing to have these ideal strategies to say, okay, this is what we're going to do this week. This is what we're going to do next week, but you have to keep your ears on the ground to ensure that you have your audiences attuned, attentive, and be able to understand. And that's the most important thing in a pandemic like this, is understanding the messaging. So I hope today, everyone who joined us for this Pratt Chat, that you got a sense of how different sectors have been managing. I would like to thank the Honourable Minister Symon de Nobriga for attending. Thank you, Danielle. Thank you, Adrian. Thank you, Colin, for coming and joining us on this interesting panel, because it needed to be said, because there's so many discussions left, right, and center. We just needed to find a way to encourage other practitioners to say, listen, yeah, we know it's tough, but there are ways in which to do it. Hopefully from your examples, they are able to take notes like the minister did. And we hope that we are able to share some, some inspiration to say, listen, we're tired. Yeah, we know, but we have to push, and we hope we can push in the right way. So thank you, everybody, for attending. Thank you, the audience who's out there. And don't forget the 3 W's, right? Wash your hands, wear a mask, watch your distance, right? And be safe. Good night, everyone.